So, Clippers season preview. Last year, they finished with a 47-25 record, which meant they're the 4 seed in the West. I remember late on this season, they tanked the last 2 games to not be in the Lakers side of the bracket. And they had a pretty crazy playoff run. In the first round, they beat the Mavs despite going down 2-0 and 3-2. Kawhi was absolutely insane in Game 6. Then in the second round, they beat the Jazz after going down 2-0 again. And in this one, Kawhi unfortunately got injured for the last 2 games, and Kawhi's injuries will play a part in this season for the Clippers because he could be out for the whole season. But the Clippers were able to win games 5 and 6 without him, including game 6, which was a crazy comeback. I believe it was like a 25-point comeback. And then in the conference finals, they lost to the Suns in 6, but it was a really great playoff run for the Clippers, and guys like Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann, and Paul George really played well. This offseason, in the draft, they were pretty active. They drafted Keon Johnson, Jason Preston, and BJ Boston. They also added Eric Bledsoe and Justice Winslow, while they lost Patrick Beverley and Rajon Rondo. And then finally, they re-signed Reggie Jackson, Nick Batum, and Kawhi Leonard. So I would say a decent offseason. Obviously, next season they won't be as competitive just because they won't have Kawhi, but brought back Reggie Jackson and Nick Batum and Kawhi, which I thought was really good, and who knows how their draft will turn out. If I look at a projected starting lineup, it could go a few ways, but I'm going to say Eric Bledsoe at point guard. He averaged 12 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists, and was terrible last year. He just didn't look like he wanted to be there, wasn't trying, the three-pointer wasn't falling. So I think the big question is which Bledsoe will they get? Because if they're getting Milwaukee Bledsoe, who is a good defender and is a good slasher and is a good playmaking, I think that has a lot of value and it gives them a lot of things they don't have. But if they're getting last year's Bledsoe, then hell, he could even be out of the rotation. So that's really the big swing factor for Bledsoe, just which one shows up. I do believe that he will get back to being at least a solid defender and a good slasher. I don't think the jump shot will ever be there, but that the Clippers were the best shooting team in NBA history last year. So a little bit more defense and a little bit more splashing, especially without Kawhi, could really help them out. So hopefully Bledsoe has a good season for them. Reggie Jackson, who went insane in the playoffs and I think deserves a starting spot. In the playoffs, he averaged 18 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists in 19 playoff games. So the sample size was quite large. Just the question was if he just got hot or if he's actually going to be able to continue that. I think it was a bit of both. I think he will still play a lot better than he has in the past few seasons in the regular season, but maybe not as good as he did in the playoffs. I think he'll have performances like he did, but maybe a bit less consistent. But if he is playing like he did in the playoffs, he gives them shot creation, he gives them 3-point shooting, and I think without Kawhi, they're going to need more scoring. And if Reggie Jackson can average 15, 16 points a game, that would be massive for the Clippers. So, I like Reggie Jackson. I think if the 3-pointer is falling and the shot creation is working, he's a dangerous player. Then Paul George, a lot is going to be on him this year. Last year, he averaged 23 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 5 assists. But this year, I think he'll average better numbers, but less efficient. And I'm just wondering if he can have one of those MVP candidate type seasons he had in 18-19, where he's averaging like 28 points a game, and he's one of the primary playmakers, and he's playing good defense. I mean, we'll see. I've been a Paul George believer for a while, so I don't know if he'll be as good as he was in 18-19, but I think he can definitely lead this team without Kawhi, and I think he will step up to the challenge. Obviously, he'll have bad games, but I think this is his time to prove that he was worth all the draft picks and that he can lead this team. So it's a big season for Paul George. He played really well in the playoffs, and I think he'll play well again. And then Marcus Morris, he averaged 13 points a game and shot 47% from 3 on 5 attempts a game last year. The Clippers, as I mentioned, were really good shooting last year. I think between Reggie Jackson, Paul George, Marcus Morris, I think Luke Kennard, I think that's one of the ways they're going to be good again this year. and it could even be more important just because they don't have the superstar in Kawhi Leonard. So, yeah, if Morris can keep hitting those threes, I think in a nightmare situation, like he thinks he needs to replace Kawhi's mid-rangers and he's taking inefficient shots, he really just needs to keep taking those threes. That's what the Clippers need from him. And, I'd rather have Paul George, I'd rather have Reggie Jackson isoing and shooting mid-rangers than Marcus Morris. Then Zubac at center, I think he's earned the starting spot. We'll see how much they do Zubac versus Ibaka versus going small. But I think Zubac, in the playoffs, he was good. He's a good rebounder. He's a good rim runner. He's a good lob threat. So just all of that. I also think defensively could be a bit more on him this year just because their offense won't be as good without Kawhi. But, if they're good defensively between Zubac, maybe Bledsoe, Paul George, Marcus Morris, Nick Batum, that could be an avenue to success for them. So, yeah, Zubac at center. Off the bench, Justice Winslow averaged 7 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 2 assists. I mean, is he really any good? I guess we'll see. Like, there was one season in Miami where he had the ball and he played well, but the shooting has never been good. So we'll see if he can give them some playmaking and maybe the shooting improves a little bit, or if he's out of the rotation. But yeah, I think they should give him a chance at, running the bench unit, having the ball in his hands, because he does still have a lot of potential, and he did play well before, for that stretch in Miami. Luke Kennard averaged 8 points a game last season, but I expect him to play a bigger role. I think he also gives them some shooting. It's going to be important for them. He could also slot into the starting lineup over Bledsoe if they want more offense. So yeah, I think he was good in spurts in the playoffs. Maybe he earned Tyronn Lue's trust, so maybe we could see a bit more of Luke Kennard. Terrence Mann, who averaged 7 points and 3.5 rebounds last year, but really had a breakout performance in the playoffs. I believe it was 39 points against the Jazz. So I think he gives them some slashing similar to Bledsoe. I could even see him starting instead of Bledsoe if they really believe in him, because I think the attacking of the rim, he has good size. I think those could be important factors for the Clippers. The shooting, we'll see. He obviously shot really well in that game against the Jazz where he went off. So, yeah, I think, I would probably start him off the bench, but he definitely has potential to break out and take that next step. Nick Batum averaged 8 points and 5 rebounds last year. He's a really solid 3-and-D guy. I could see him starting too. I think the Clippers have a lot of lineup possibilities between Kennard, Mann, and Batum off the bench, and all capable of slotting into the starting lineup. I think Batum, he's always in the right place, can make threes, can handle the ball and play make a little bit. He's a solid defensive player. So yeah, I think he's going to be important for this team. And then Serge Ibaka averaged 11 points and 7 rebounds last year. We'll see if he's healthy because, back problems. He's past 30, so we'll see. But if he is, I think he gives them the possibility to go 5 out. And yeah, I think he gives them something Zubac doesn't with his 3-point shooting and maybe even his passing. So yeah, with this team, I think the big question is Kawhi coming back. I wouldn't expect him to play this season, just knowing how Kawhi takes his time with recovery. So considering that, who will step up? I think Terrence Mann's a good candidate. Maybe Luke Kennard. Maybe it's Reggie Jackson continuing his playoff form. But they need someone to step up alongside Paul George this season. If I'm gonna make a one more thing, just how much will they go small? I think they should not do it too much, just because it's a lot harder to play small in the regular season, where it's sort of like an 82 game grind. But I think it is a weapon that can change games because they can shoot more threes. They can make comebacks. So we'll see how much they play small and how much they lean into the 3-pointers. If I make a prediction, I think they'll be in the play-in. So 7 through 10, I think they'll be the 8th seed. That's my pick. I think Paul George will have a good season. I think they'll still shoot a lot of threes, but the West is really tough, and I think they'll struggle a tiny bit just without Kawhi. But yeah, I like this team. I think if they had Kawhi, I'd have them a lot higher, obviously, but I think the 8th seed is pretty fair. But anyways, thanks for watching this video, guys. Leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more NBA content.